Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
And Jason.
So this morning, I spoke with Joe Exotic from prison, and it was a really interesting call. There is a lot going on with him. You know, he has cancer, and the doctors think it may have spread, and he's already given them a do not resuscitate order. So we wanted, obviously, to talk to him about how bad his health is right now, but a lot of other things about his regrets, his forgiveness, his depression. There's a lot here. So we're going to play you some of it and then unpack it.
Well, you know, I feel good. I go out and walk 2 miles a day and do a couple hundred push-ups and several hundred jumping jacks, and I try and eat the best I can to stay healthy as you can in here. They kind of feed you like crap. But it's rough, but the depression is the hardest part.
And the source of the depression, I would assume, centers around being in prison.
Well, you know, it's being in prison and being innocent. You know, I have the evidence out there of video confessions that these people all lied, and I'm still in here, and I can't get through this system. I've been waiting since May of last year just for the judge to rule on whether or not I can have a new trial with the new evidence, and we can't get him to do anything.
So you are dealing with that, and you know, obviously, that is an extreme uphill climb. And at the same time, you've given them a do not resuscitate order. So it sounds like the reality is that you know you could die in prison.
Well, you know, I could die in here, and I could, you know, there's been people in Oklahoma that spend 40 years in prison and get out and die in a car wreck the very next day. I just have the attitude that if God gives me the will to move on, do not bring me back to this world.
Is the case with you that this cancer has spread, and if that happens, that this is getting toward the end, would you forgive Carole Baskin for whatever you say she did to you?
You know, I've already forgave her. And I forgave Jeff and James and Lauren and everybody that's involved in this case. Am I going to forget? Never, because I've been through hell in the last 5 years. But forgive? I have no hard feelings. I've never really had any hard feelings against Carole Baskin. People have to understand that in the animal rights world, bashing each other is how people make money. Carole made money telling people that I abused my animals, and, you know, I got attention saying she killed her husband.
What's your biggest regret?
My biggest regret? Owning a zoo.
Talk to me about that.
Other than owning a zoo, it's meeting Jeff Lowe. Carole Baskin was not a threat to me because I fought her in court. Jeff Lowe is just a corrupt bastard.
Do you regret having done Tiger King?
Well, first of all, I didn't do Tiger King. Did Tiger King ruin my life? Absolutely. I was filming just a little tiger show in 2016 and 17. And then Netflix and Eric Good and all of them turned this into this conspiracy to kill Carole Baskin to make a show. Anything you saw me in was real filming that I filmed at the zoo. Everything they filmed after 2018 when I got arrested was all pre-set up, and we have evidence that they were all paid to say what they said. You know, I get along with everyone as far as inmates go. I've not had a problem in 5 years with any inmates. And I've been in solitaire next to the Unabomber. And I was in solitaire in Grady County with Chino Anthrax from the Sinaloa cartel. And it's not of who I am, it's how I carry myself and the respect that I earn here in prison.
Did you have any interaction with the Unabomber?
I did not, because they keep him in a complete solid glassed-off cell right next to mine in North Carolina. But, I seen him go to cancer treatment, and it's pretty crazy what America keeps in prison.
If you were to get out, how would you spend your last days outside prison?
I'm going to go to Fort Smith, Arkansas, I hope. Get married to Seth, and I've been offered a concert tour, and I'm going to take him up on a concert tour, and I'm going to enjoy life. I still got a lot of fight left in me, but if I die in prison at this point in time right now, I'll be the first presidential candidate to die in federal prison.
Presidential candidate? What do you mean?
I officially am on the federal election campaign website as running for president for 2024 as a libertarian, and I intend on making the politicians and the American people listen to what's going on in this country. People may think that this is a joke for me being sick and me running for office from here, but it's not. I have some extremely major influencers that are my endorsers and online news tabloids and everything else that's backing me for this. So please get on joeexotic2024.com and look around, because I'm taking this serious. If I can, I'm gonna do my best to be a voice for the poor people of this country for a change.
It was interesting. He's more sanguine about his circumstances than I thought he would be.
Yeah.
Struck me. And the depression seems more rooted in the legal system than the incarceration.
I agree completely. Or in the cancer diagnosis.
Yeah. Which is, he is, when this diagnosis, by the way, is that the cancer, the doctor said, may have spread. And if it's spread, it is really bad. And yet he's saying, look, I did do a DNR and all this. So he is thinking of end of life. Yet the thing that's bothering him is the legal system.
Yeah, I think that's right. He mentioned his abiding faith, which I think helps him out a lot. He is, but he's forgiven Carole Baskin. He's forgiven Jeff Lowe. He says, I haven't forgotten. I still remember what they did to me, but I've forgiven them.
Although he says it, on the one hand, he's forgiven, and on the other hand, calls him a corrupt bastard.
Yeah, he's still angry, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm guessing in the Christian sense, he feels forgiveness for what they did to him. But right at the top, he talked about he's still battling these guilty verdicts. He's still trying to get a new trial. He's still upset with the judge for taking so long to get going with ruling on his various motions that he has to set aside his trial. And that's really where his attention is focused. And you're right, his depression is brought on by the fact that he's trapped in jail for a crime he insists he did not commit.
Yeah. And then the other thing that kind of struck me was your biggest regret. Owning a zoo.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting because that zoo puts him on this whole trajectory. So I think what he's saying is that my life could have gone back into the recesses of, what ordinary people go through. He experienced fame, got money for it, but also got in a lot of trouble with the zoo. And looking back, he seems to want to have had a more ordinary life without all of this.
He seems to suggest that I realize I got fame and out of it, and that painted, the whole world knows who I am, but I would give it all up just to go back to my other life.
My ordinary self.
Yeah, that's right.
I find that really interesting.
For such an obvious showman, right?
For an obvious showman.
Yeah.
But yet, in another breath, he's running for president. So, Joe Exotic.
there is a contradiction there, yeah.
I mean, he is embracing the fame he has. And it doesn't matter whether there's a victory lap at the end of all of it. He just likes it.
Yes. He said he's running for president because he wants to do good for people. I forgot the exact wording that he used, but I'm sure he's finding there that I'm not doing it for my own fame and popularity. I'm doing it because I think it could do good. But ultimately, you're doing it because you like the adulation of people.
And the other thing is, when I asked him about Tiger King, and he said, look, I didn't do Tiger King. I shot videos that these producers ended up using to create Tiger King, and around which they had all of these people who then started pointing a guilty finger at him. But the reality is he was in prison before and convicted before Tiger King aired.
Yeah.
So it's hard to understand how Tiger King put him in these circumstances. And he doesn't squarely say that.
Yeah.
But he was appealing at the time of Tiger King, but he was convicted before.
I saw Tiger King. I was into it at the time. I don't remember the facts. Was he convicted based on the videos that he had created that then Tiger King got the rights to and played? Do you know?
No, it was long. Well,
or it was long before the.
He was convicted long before any of these videos surfaced.
Okay.
But there were people who were around, talking about him, including Carole Baskin, obviously, and Jeff Lowe and others. So look, I mean, he's a complicated guy, and his demeanor. It's so interesting that we've covered a lot of people, and there are people who become real son of a bitches, and they stay that way in prison. He's chill.
Yeah.
He's really chill. I mean, when you listen to him, there's no the range of his voice is in a very narrow range.
Yeah.
And you don't hear anger, you don't hear happiness, you don't hear sadness. It's all kind of one straight line. It's one straight line.
I heard that too. I was so much taken by it. I thought that he'd be a little more angry because we've heard him in the past, and he sort of rails against these folks. But now he, time will do this. Maturity does this. Time in prison does this. When you asked him if he has any regrets, though, he did. He didn't self-reflect. What he's saying, right, is Tiger King was a terrible mistake by me because look what it has done to me because all these people. He didn't say, look, putting aside the guilt or innocence of hiring a hitman to kill Carole Baskin. He says he didn't do it. It's pretty clear he made some mistakes too, right? He had an animosity and anger towards these people. Maybe it is.
Clearly.
Maybe
well, he even said
Yeah.
that the currency in this animal world is controversy, is fighting.
Yes.
And he said Carole Baskin made a lot of money off of it, and he essentially is saying so did he.
Yeah.
So he's saying that they trade in that currency
Yeah.
in this area. I don't know. I mean, look, he's the idea, what this is. I mean, getting an appeal to overturn a conviction or even to get a new trial is such an uphill climb.
And what he's doing is not an error in the law. He's saying there was additional evidence that has come out since that other people
Which can be used.
Can be used, but to your point, you have to convince a judge not only that there was additional evidence that was relevant, but had it been introduced, he would have been found not guilty. It's reversible error, and that's an incredibly high standard, as it has to be. Every case has things that are not allowed in, not allowed in.
Right, but there is another element to what he's saying, that in addition to saying there's new evidence, he's saying there's evidence, he says, that shows corruption in terms of some of the people who testified against him and, suggesting they might have been paid for this and all. Again, that's going to be tough to prove, but it's easier to get a new trial if you can prove that some of the testimony, especially
was perjured.
critical testimony, was perjured. Again, we don't know any of that, whether he has any proof of that or whether a judge will buy that. And as you say, whether it would even make a difference if he got if that evidence wasn't admitted in the first trial. So this can be really tough for him.
He also said he's going to marry Seth. He's been married 2 or 3 times in prison now, right? Or
no,
he's
been engaged.
He's been engaged. I see. So he's found a new guy he wants to marry.
And finally, the funniest thing to me is, what are you going to do if you get out of prison? How are you going to spend your final days? And I thought, I just finished watching Dead to Me, which is maybe
you loved it. Yeah.
Maybe the best show I think I've seen.
Wow.
Certainly the best show I've seen in years, and I can't really think of anything I enjoyed more. And at the end of this, and I don't want to spoil anything, there is a scene where they go down to Mexico because one of the main characters has cancer. And you would think, going down to Mexico, hanging out at the beach or whatever else. He wants to go on tour as a musician, as a singer.
I was going to ask you what the concert tour is all about.
That's the concert tour. He wants to go on tour as a musician. Joe Exotic loves fame. He loves fame. That when you want to spend your final days on stage, he loves fame. So the dichotomy of Joe Exotic is My biggest regret is owning a zoo, which would have made me a private person had I not done it, presumably, right?
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, he's running for president. He wants to do a concert tour. He is a complicated individual.
Well, or very simple, right? He just wants to be famous, but he doesn't want to be in jail, especially for a crime he didn't commit. I mean, it's not that. I just, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with people. We cover people all the time who want to be famous desperately,
And don't want to be in jail.
And don't want to be in jail.
That feels like
I guess, yeah.
That just feels kind of like what most people would feel.
I think that's right. I think that's right.
Have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday.